do 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 do. Blah blah blah. Can you hear me now? It says it's recording. All right, now we've got sound. That's awesome. Oh, you're signed in as me now. Is that on purpose? I mean, it's fine. I don't care one way or the other. I've been getting a lot of those first comments because I've been doing Dollar Tree reviews this week, and it tends to attract all of the types of people who be like, first comment! D-face, 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 D-face! Yay! So how have you been? It's been like a million years. So while y'all are informing me of how y'all were, I'm gonna do my usual spiel. So Power Hour is brought to you thanks to the generosity of my art nerds over on Patreon. If you like what I do and you want to help me do it, you can join me over there. They have gotten access to some early access goodies regarding a class that I am teaching tomorrow. I'm going to talk about that. Oh, snap. Thank you. Let me fix that. There we go. Boop, boop. They have gotten early access to some goodies that I am working on for a class I'm teaching at Plaza tomorrow. So if you've always wanted to take a class with me and you don't live in the right area or our stars have just not aligned, you can gain access to these sort of goodies by joining me over on Patreon. If Patreon is too much of a commitment for you, I also have a coffee account. So if you like what I do and you want to help me do it, let me grab a link for that. Ooh, chocolates. It sounds like an excellent use of the day though, Hema. Just in case. And this is also brought to you by my comic 7-inch Cara, and I have a really cute guest comic from Feather running for the next, I want to say 10 weeks. I'm still soliciting for guest comics while I'm working on getting the Kickstarter for Volume 2 ready. So if you have a tiny person comic or a tiny person story that you would like to tell, get in touch with me over email. And then I mentioned having classes at Plaza. There is still time if you're in the Nashville area to sign up. You can do so over at plazaart.com/classes-workshops. And then I want to give an art nerd shout out today to Electric Abyss. Heidi is moving next Friday from California all the way to Ohio. And I know Heidi is in need of some additional funds. So now could be a really great time to join them on their adult material Patreon, if that's your jam, or to pick up a copy of Sons of Fire, either Volume 1 or Volume 2, or to commission Heidi with work. So I am going to drop a link to that. And that was the doorbell, and I have a feeling that was my Pinocchio order. That was supposed to be here at 5, and I completely changed my plans for today's Power Hour because it hadn't arrived. Ah, my mailman. I love him so. Anyway, so we have accomplished our art nerd shout out. So I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about Copics on tone paper. That's the class that I'm going to be teaching tomorrow. Then I have a commission that I'm going to start working on. I get to draw Marshall from Animal Crossing. So I'm going to do the sketch, I'm going to do the transfer, and then I'm going to do wax resist, and then I'm going to do a Brusho background for you guys, clean that up. And then Allie sent me some questions about watercolor that I'm going to answer. But I think what I'm actually going to do, I'm going to break the topic just a little bit. And I have a great big package right here with me. And I know I'm setting myself up to be harassed. But I have a package that just arrived from Pinocchio. Better late than never. And I am hastily scribbling some black Sharpie on it to absolutely no avail. It's not doing any good at all. I'd be better served putting a sticker on this. See if I can Sorry about that. I would do it on camera, but it's got sensitive personal information that I do not want other people having access to, so I'm sure you guys understand. Ugh, how annoying. It really is doing nothing. It does nothing. So let's flip the script just ever so slightly for a few minutes. I have here a package from Pinocchio, and Pinocchio is the company that I do my charms with. So let's take a look at what's inside. And I'm going to change the title really quick to Pinocchio Charm Unboxing. Woo! Commercial! And I apologize for the poor video settings. Okay, so let me see what we're looking at. Oh, all y'all see is a huge cardboard package. Well, the thing is I wasn't able to really cover my personal information. Okay, so Joseph helped me get this started by slitting it. I'm going to finish the job. I'm so glad this came in because I have an open house with Nashville Community Ed in August, and then I have another show that I'm going to announce soon with a friend. Wow, these are small. These are small. All right, these are small. Let's move this out of the way, and let's take a look at these. My new charms. Do do do. Oh, some of these are really cute. The beignet charms are so cute. And these are going to be available from me at conventions as well as through the Netto shop. And that's going to be at nettosoup.com/shop. Oh, I'm sorry. Some of these are so stinking cute already. Like, I'm excited. Oh, y'all. Y'all. I mean, some of them are small, but like, look at the takoyaki. Look at the takoyaki. Look how stupid cute the takoyaki is. Wow, it's so cute. It's so dumb. I loves it. Oh, and then I have these beignet charms, and they're gonna have white on them. And then I have like a whole bunch of new cute girl charms. They're a little bit small to paint though, which is my concern, but they're really cute. I can still do them as pins because that's what I originally bought them to do them as, but they're a little small for painting. So I think what I'm going to do is if people want to see these as painted charms, then help me sell these, and then I can do an order of the big ones. So these are the cherry wood Pinocchio charms. These are laser cut. I do the designs. We hired my friend Dylan Banks to do the, he did the vectorizing, and he did a really good job. They're very clean. Like the line art on them are really nice. I know, dude, Joseph nested them, and Joseph did a check plus phenomenal job. Look how tight that is. So these are almost everything but the raptors, I believe, are all new charm designs. And it's like, what, 14 different charms? 18 different charms in 2 colors. So we have the cherry wood, which is great for representing beautiful darker skin tones. And then we have the maple. Is it maple? It's maple, right?
One's maple and one's
the maple, which is our lighter wood. So, sorry, I'm so excited. Let me show you guys some of my favorite ones. So this one and this one, they're designed to be a set. So you could either wear them together, but I was also thinking of doing chains so they could be like collar points. So you have like your star girl and then you have your flower crown girl. And then I have a really cute little fawn. She will look really, really cute, big and painted. And a triclops with really cute fluffy hair. Another triclops with her hair pinned back. Then I have Just some like cute, kind of silly shoujo ones. Ooh, wow, wow. The stem on this Cara is so thin. And I have new Cara and Naomi charms, including Pancake. And then a cute cat girl charm and a really cute little Oni charm. And I think the super thick etch on the beignets is really cute. And then a Daruma girl. See, the Daruma girl is big enough. I do not understand how I misjudged the size so badly. And then we have a really cute little girl with an afro. And I have a bunch of new dinos. And then the crocodile is going to be a problem. He's so little.
Yeah.
We'll figure something out.
I made a couple of them bigger.
And then I have a frilled lizard as well. And we have like succulents with roses, and these are one of the ones designed to be painted. So these are all of the the cherry ones. No wonder we got so many on such a small sheet. We usually have to go way bigger.
What do you mean? That's a regular size sheet.
They look like biscuits. Yeah, they do. No, the regular size sheet is twice as wide.
No, that's the size we've always gotten.
No. I remember it being a lot bigger. Okay, well. Can you give me something to put these in?
Like the charm bucket.
Well, no, because I want to do like photos and stuff of it. Just something. Oh, if the charm bucket's empty, bring me the charm bucket then. So I'm really excited about the new charms because it's been a couple years since I've gotten to do new charms. I'm a little disappointed that they ended up smaller than I envisioned in my head, but that's on me. That's not on Pinocchio, and that's not on Joseph because I'm the one who gave him the sizes. I'll just have to bump everything up. Yeah, these feet are just like so small. And look, Pancake's tail broke. But I'm still excited about them. Whenever you're doing manufacturing and you're not working with a company that like handles all of the, like Pinocchio just cuts it for us. They don't test it. They are not like, oh, hey, those look small for charms. You know, it's not that kind of a company. So anytime you're working with a new, oh yeah, and then I have like a new Cyclops girl and she's so cute. Anytime you're working with new designs or a new company, this kind of stuff can happen.
Why don't you try to peel off both sides at the same time on the other one?
I can try it. Yeah, so now I'm trying to get these picked up so I can take a look at the lighter wood charms. I'm so glad they finally came in. So anything that doesn't have like a little loophole, these are all going to be pin backs. Yeah, well, yeah, I wanted more pin back stuff. I mean, the Tabasco has a little... Or I guess you could just call it hot sauce, but to me it's Tabasco. These little dudes, though, are going to be a problem because, like, I don't have any pin backs that are really small enough for them. Oh, takoyaki are delicious. If you like, I mean, I like octopus, okay. So, they're delicious if you like octopus. Alright, so Joseph asked me to try and do this one all in one go. So, that's what I'll try to do. That means taking the front off first. I don't think it's going... No, I did the other one like that, though. Oh, no, I can't do that on camera. Yeah, I want it. Well, it's also going to fall all over the floor. And then I don't want it to fall all over the floor. Okay, so these are the maple. which is the lighter wood. Oh, sorry for making you hungry. So it's mostly the same designs, just in a lighter wood. Hmm? No, there were Caras in the other design too. No, there were a few. But I'm not seeing any Naomis, which are good. Because I wanted the Naomis on the cherry. Initially, I was hoping I could have these for A2 cap, and that did not happen. That did not happen. But I'm happy to have them now. Have them now, get them processed, put them up in my shop. So that's exciting. I was really hoping these would come in time for the stream, so I'm glad that they did. Even if it meant like I'd already figured out what I was gonna do and have to kind of reconfigure. And Joseph, did you put links to the Pinocchio, your blog? So Joseph wrote a blog post on how you can get your own charms done through Pinocchio for anybody who's interested in learning how to do this. I think for me, it's been much more cost effective than doing like the, what's it called, charms. I've done the acrylic charms in the past. These are just much more cost effective for me. And then I also get to paint them, which I really like being able to do, because then I can do all different color combinations. I don't have to limit myself to anything. The new Caras and the new Naomis are going to be part of my Cara Kickstarter. It's going to be one of the rewards. So it's nice to see them in person, and I may opt to do them bigger for the reward. The dark etching looks really good. And for a more finished charm, of course, you have to peel the backing off, which I'm not going to do on camera because that's not entertaining. Huh? It is labor intensive, and it's also just not entertaining. And if you want a closer look at these, I'm also going to have photos up on my Instagram pretty soon. I want to get them kind of picked up, though, so we can move on with this evening. And you can do other things with Pinocchio as well. Like, you don't have to do charms. That's how we use Pinocchio. But it's just a laser cutting company. So, like, you can submit any kind of design that can be laser cut. And they do have, like, certain parameters on the site for what is feasible. But they can help walk you through that. And they don't sponsor me. I don't get any kind of a cut from them. They hardly acknowledge my existence. So I just happen to like the quality of their laser cutting. I'm pretty satisfied with the turnover time, and I'm pretty satisfied with the price. Which, as somebody who manufactures almost everything she sells, that's really important, is I need to get it at a decent price, because if I pay too much, then either I can't afford to sell it to my customers, or it's, you know, they're not going to want to pay what I have to charge. Those tiny, tiny crocodinos. Yeah, it's definitely aimed more at crafty and techie people than it is at artists. They could make a pretty significant dent, though, in the convention artist market if they just spent time targeting them. All right, I'm going to get this cleaned up, and then we're going to move on to the commission. tiny fiddly bits that will stick in your foot an hour later. Forbidden chocolate, yeah, really. Okay, so I wanted to talk a little bit about the class that I'm teaching tomorrow. So I'm teaching a class on using alcohol markers, specifically Copic markers, on toned and colored papers. And I don't know if you guys use alcohol markers too often or if you use them on colored papers, but using them on toned papers can really add a lot of variety and interest to your art. So I have here some samples using kind of like this mermaid skin tone sheet I created for one of my earlier classes. I just repeated the same skin tones on different papers to kind of show how the paper can influence the skin tones you're using. So these are all, let's see, these are all Strathmore Artigan papers. And then this is just some printer craft paper that I buy to use as the covers for my Lilliputian Living books. Then these were done using Copics with a little bit of the white Winsor & Newton pigment marker, but these were done on the Desert Rose Artigan paper. So it's like a really pink Artigan paper, and it's actually really nice for darker skin tones. You don't have to use as much marker because you're using the base of the paper, like this beautiful pink color, as your base instead of like the white of the paper. Because like with like the Express It blending card, for example, I find that it's actually a little bit blue cast, and I find that it desaturates almost any skin tone that I put on top of it. But using these tone papers, it's like a really nice base to start. So these were done on Desert Rose Artigan. And then this was done on the tone blue paper, which is fairly new, and this is like the base color. So if you're working on that with alcohol markers, since alcohol markers are a transparent medium, they're just going to sit on top of the paper and tone it rather than have like an opaque color punch. But if you were working with this blue paper using color pencils, which would be opaque on the paper, or gouache or any opaque medium, Poscas even, would look really good on this paper. And then this is the Tone Tan mixed media paper. It's a little bit easier to work with because it's not as, like this is very blue and very desaturated, and this is much warmer and it's not as dark. So you can really use this as a base for your illustrations, and the white will really start to pop. And then I also have a flower demo I did of Echinacea with a bee, and this was done on the tone blue paper as well. And you can see how the tone blue really kind of desaturates it. So if you're going to use the tone blue, I'd recommend being kind of careful. But I really like the tone tan paper. Again, it's really nice for darker skin tones. I have a illustration of Naomi from my comic 7-inch Cara, and she just looks so cute on this. Like, she looks just really, really cute. I was able to actually leave some of the paper, so I'm not having to build up all that color. I can actually work from this surface, and then I can add in white later to kind of add in lighting and add in a little bit of freshness. So I think this turned out really cute. And I have one of Cara as well. And you actually, if you're doing lighter skin tones, you really just need to think about adding the shadows and the blush rather than building up all the way from like the white of the paper. So if you have a smaller marker collection using toned and colored papers, even colored cardstocks can be a great way to get extra mileage out of a smaller marker collection. And you can also, of course, use it with color pencils. And I think it actually, this is the pit pins and then the opaque pigment markers that Winsor & Newton was making for a while. Same thing. So pit pins actually work really nicely on this paper. But you can see you can really leave a lot of the paper to show through and just add the shading. That's right. That's right. Instant bump. You'll look like 100% more legit as an artist. And I see no sponsorship from Strathmore. I just happen to like the tone papers. I think they're fun to play with. Okay, so I talked about my class tomorrow. So what I have for them is I have copies of this photo if people want to try doing that one. I also have a couple of line arts if people just want to color and kind of figure it out. Yeah, exactly, Maddie. Extra charm. That's a really good way to think about it. And then I also have some cute dinos, you know, because people accuse me of like only doing cute girls, which is like, yeah, you're not wrong. I could be known for cute girls and dinos. That doesn't sound bad. So that's my class tomorrow. But I teach a lot of classes here in Nashville, and I actually have a class mailing list for people who live in the Nashville area or live in Louisiana, because I go back to Louisiana and I teach twice a year. I have a class mailing list that lets people know when those are coming up. Okay. So next, I am drawing Marshall from Animal Crossing because I have a commission that I need to fill that I took at a Tomcat. Oh, hey, good evening, Patrick. So what I'm going to do for this is rather than draw it directly on my watercolor paper, I'm going to sketch it in my sketchbook first, and then I'm going to do a graphite transfer onto my paper. And graphite transfers are great if you're kind of like me and you have a hard time drawing on your art paper, or maybe you don't want to gunk it up with a lot of graphite, or you're not super sure yet what you want to draw, and maybe you find drawing on the real thing intimidating. You can do a graphite transfer, which has really limited materials. You don't really need a lot to do that. So I've got my reference up. You need to draw like 100% more Sierra with dinos. I feel like that is definitely something that's going to attract way more readers. Just like all of your promo art can be Sierra with dinos. And I have a sketch I did last night because I was thinking Marshall's my favorite villager. Well, Marshall, Agent S, and Gladys are my favorite official villagers. But I had a bit of a romance with Marshall because like there's a point when he lives in your village where he'll start sending you like love notes, and I was responding in kind, like I was feeling the Marshall love, and then he like took it like I'd rejected him, and I was like, my baby. He kind of reminds me of Joseph because he's a little bit sulky and he likes music, and he also likes very nerdy weeby things. You're not sulky? You still remind me of Mark. He's not actually sulky. He just looks like he's cranky. But he's actually he's always been sweet in my village. Like he's never picked fights or anything. He's a squirrel. And he's got a cinnamon roll tail. He's a sulky squirrel. No, actually, I'm going to use a really soft B graphite pencil, apply it all over the back, and then transfer it. Just because I find that using like carbon graphite, it gets all over my hands, and it drives me bonkers. And this is what I use for any of my convention watercolor commissions. Squirrel. So I apologize for being gone for so long. I was in Louisiana teaching comic classes back at like my old library. Oh, what? There are Marshall amiibos, Joseph. Marshall. Sorry, I got distracted by my best boy. I would totally make you cosplay as Marshall. It's not hard. You just have to wear a killer button up all the way sleeveless denim jacket and no pants. A boombox because he loves music. Yeah, I'll do that too, Maddie. I also will use like a post-it note and do thumbnails on post-it notes, and then put the post-it note on like the cover of the watercolor paper I want to use as like a reminder, and then I'll totally never get around to it. Yeah, just anything to kind of take the pressure off of getting it right when you're trying to do it on arches. Marshall, my baby, you need some pants. I feel so weird drawing you without pants. I'm gonna give him little fringed, like he tore off the sleeves. Because that's what I thought he did the first time I saw it. All right. Oh no. A self-powering Pika speaker. Pika speak. That would be pretty cute. So there is no way I'm going to finish working on him tonight. But what I might do, depending, is I might do an impromptu stream. I don't know when. But like, I don't know, today through Monday. Not today, but you know, Saturday through Monday. And finish working on it during one of those streams. Mostly because once I apply the Brusho, it's going to be, hey Calvin, good evening. It's gonna, like, you'll see. I'm gonna saturate the paper and it takes a couple hours to dry. I'm not not great about doing, I'll do studies, but I'm really bad about doing like pre-planning when it comes to color. And I'll just like push through until I kind of force it right. But if I'm having trouble with the anatomy of something, I'll usually turn to Senshi stock to kind of help me figure out what I'm drawing. And I know, I'm sorry, I'm making the camera wiggle. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover the back of this with graphite and then tape it to my paper and then use just a regular mechanical pencil, trace over it bearing down so that the graphite transfers onto the watercolor paper. If you use thinner paper, it's easier to transfer. Maddie mentioned earlier in the chat about using like a carbon graphite or a carbon transfer. That's actually designed for graphite transfers, and some artists really like them. I don't have a problem with them. I just don't like how dirty they get my hands. And I've also found that doing it like this, I can haul this with me to cons and at least get my commissions started. Because I don't like getting my hand, I don't like getting my hands dirty. Also, I just don't keep any carbon paper around. I've been doing it this way for, gosh, 6 or 7 years now. I'll also use a printer to print out blue lines and then pencil over that. But for these little quick small commissions, it's honestly just easier for me to do graphite transfer like this. I used to do it at the show, but the problem with that is that even if you tell somebody it's not going to be done until tomorrow, they'll still come back 10 minutes later wanting to know where their commission's at. Yeah. I do have a light bulb. I do, okay. I do use it sometimes. I don't take it out from here. I will literally remove, because it's under here, I'll just remove this and then flick it on and use it like that. But you're right, I don't use it very often. Light boxes are great. I mean, there's times when printing on something and when doing a graphite transfer onto something is just not going to be feasible. And the light box is way more feasible for some of those things. Like if you're working with delicate things or lightweight things. Oh, I use the, I don't have it with me. I packed it up for tomorrow. But I use the color Eno myself. I mean, you saw the blue one. I really like the pink one for like skin tones and stuff. It works really well. You can also use red lead for that. But yeah, a lot of people use the coal erase for underdrawings for their watercolor stuff. You can use it with alcohol marker too. Me change my title. Sorry, I'm gonna sing dumb songs for you guys. He's so cute. So the technique I'm going to show you guys after I finish doing this graphite transfer is one that I use really often. It's already loose and not glued in a block. Yeah. Oh, the blocks are really handy because you don't have to stretch them, but they're really frustrating because I will usually run paper through my printer and I can't do it if it's in a block. That's how I amuse myself. I was in Louisiana and I was trying to order something from Apple Bapples for us to pick up on our way home. And I was singing the order the entire time because I was getting frustrated with the site and I was trying to be upbeat. And my mom thought it was the funniest thing. I guess she doesn't realize that I will boredly sing my actions sometimes. How often would you say I do that?
At least every day.
At least every day. I used to be in choir, and singing was pretty important to me, but um, the singing was one of those casualties of like, can I monetize this? I'm not comfortable monetizing this. I don't know if I'm good enough to monetize this. So I quit pursuing it, which is kind of a bummer. Plus, UNO really would not, because like my freshman year, I went out for choir there, and they weren't letting any non-majors or non-potential majors join the choir at that time.
A lot of music classes in general, they only let majors take it. Some art classes too, they only let majors take.
Oh, you just had to know the right teacher for the art classes because they always needed more butts in those seats. The problem was we'd get non-art majors, and then the whole class curriculum would get dragged down by business majors who weren't willing to put the time in to accomplish the project. I don't have a problem with non-majors taking classes, but I don't think you should change the course because non-majors are not prepared for it. You made it on a good printer to handle watercolor paper. So what I'm using it for is I'm using it to print non-photo blue lines that once I do a wash and stretch my pages, they basically dissolve. And I can show you what I mean. Kind of. Kind of show you what I mean. Okay. No! No! Give me a sec. Disaster is about to strike. Okay, so I don't know if you guys can see it, but there are really faint blue printed lines on this, and then I penciled on it. When I stretch it, those blue lines are basically going to wash away, just leaving the graphite. And it's going to look a lot like these. What printer do I have, Joseph? It's a Canon Pixma Pro 9000 Mark II. Would you mind dropping a link in the chat for that? It's expensive, but I've had mine for... I got it when I moved. No, it's my second. But I had my first one in Savannah, and I got the second one right before we moved here. So it's been about 6 years, and I've printed hundreds of watercolor, like Cara pages on it. So it's expensive, but it's a workhorse too. They do, yeah. Yeah. The ink I'm using is dye based and it's water soluble. But if you buy the official ink for it, it's pigment based and it's not water soluble. Oh. And so I'm really bearing down with my pencil, and that's because I want to get a really nice graphite transfer with this. And even after I do the transfer, I may pencil it again. Although what I've been doing lately is not penciling it again, but like inking it with the watercolor. Actually, you can do light pink as well. Yeah, it can stain. But usually I find the staining to be like not noticeable at all once I finish painting it. But yeah, light colors are best. I mean, if your eyes are good enough to see yellow, you could go with yellow.
Yeah, I was gonna say yellow would be the lightest.
My eyes are just not good enough for the yellow. And you don't have to use a mechanical pencil for this. You can use a wooden pencil. You could use a color pencil, any pencil that you can kind of bear down and apply a lot of pressure. Whew, I guess this is like invisible and it's like a magic picture for you, Calvin, as it's slowly appearing onto the paper. And I'm transferring this onto a fluid easy block, which is a cellulose watercolor block, and that's what I usually use for my convention commissions. But you can use this technique on any kind of watercolor paper you wish. Some of the more textured ones, it may be a little bit harder for you to get a clean transfer, but it's going to be easier than trying to print it. The pencil that broke your hand? It's the pencil that's breaking mine. I basically only use it these days for graphite transfers and when I'm doing Cara thumbnails. And it's got like 3B Pentel lead in it. I got to meet Terry on the A2CAF trip. See, I was going to chalk it up as being a bust, but I got to meet Terry, and that was definitely worthwhile. Thank you for coming out to meet me, by the way. That was a really good afternoon. It makes it a lot easier when you've like seen their face and heard their voice on their channel. No, oh yeah, like you were the worst. At least you weren't trying to talk at me about D&D. I have respect for people who play D&D. I used to play it, but that's all my Twitter is right now. I used to play it, but right now my time is so I mean your time is pretty limited too. Yeah. For me, I would just rather be working on Cara stuff because I'm really behind on it right now. I know I do. But I'm seriously behind. Oh, see, Mouse Guard. And then there's also a Lilliputian one. All right, I'm going to attempt your name and you're going to have to correct me. And I know we're Twitter mutuals and I always enjoy what you post. Enistoya? Or do I pronounce it as a J? I'm sorry. Yes, there is a Mouse Guard tabletop game. We can all just play our Red Wall D&D headcanons. Enistoya. Ha, okay. Ha, not ya. Thank you. I'm glad you can make it. I think this is the first time I've seen you in the stream. I mean, that doesn't mean you haven't been here before. Who put serious work into the main unofficial Hyrule setting? Oh.
He works for EA now.
Oh, I think I might know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
Because he knew Tucker too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Josh Bishop.
Yeah. I met him like one time. That's cool though.
Yeah, I think it's been like 5 years on it.
Speaking of, 2020 is going to be the year you guys never see me again because new Animal Crossing is coming out, new Breath of the Wild is coming out. Oh, I believe that. Um, I knew a guy when I was at SCAD who was working on the My Little Pony fighting game, the one that got shut down in a big way. So I feel like anything you say plus My Little Pony definitely exists. Nice dude. Fighting is magic. Is that the? I would believe you if that's the name. Oh my gosh, what was the name of that fighting game base? And you could put in your favorite anime characters. Do you remember what I'm talking about? Like it was super popular our senior year of high school. All my friends were playing it. Well, it's always the quiet ones, right, Calvin? Oh, cool. There, yeah, that's right, Mugen. There we go. Wow, it's been a long minute since I've heard anybody talk about that. My friends were so obsessed with it. All right, so something else I'll do sometimes is if I'm doing the art digitally, but I want to watercolor it, which happens pretty frequently, I'll print the art out as blue lines onto just cheap printer paper and then do a graphic transfer of that as well. Okay. All right, so next I want to do a little bit of wax resist. And you can use a clear wax crayon like they make for watercolor. But what I actually like to use these days is just a Crayola crayon because that way you can put color down in addition to doing a wax resist. And the reason I like to do that is it creates a barrier so that the Brusho doesn't get all up in the character, and you guys will see what I'm talking about in a couple minutes. I've got Shy Guy stuck in my head, the We're Just a Couple of Rappers song. Professor Shy Guy. I wasn't sure if it was Mr. Shy Guy or Uncle Shy Guy. No, I know it was not Uncle Shy Guy. Let's go with blue because he wears that cute little denim jacket. Everybody knows it's Marshall. That's me. I'm creating a wax resist, which basically helps me isolate between the area that's going to have Brusho in it, which is a dye-based watercolor product, and the areas that I'm going to like watercolor the way I normally would. And the reason I do that is just because sometimes Brusho can contaminate your other colors. So I find doing it this way kind of helps keep the Brusho out of areas where I don't want Brusho. And I'm doing a color just be
What's more fugitive, crayons or
Brusho probably. Brusho's dye based. I don't know that crayons. Okay. Looking at old art from when I was a little kid, the paper falls apart faster than the crayons fall apart. Acid free, oh yeah. My mom was 100% buying acid free paper when I was drawing all over the wallpaper. All right, I am gonna clean. How much do? No, I don't at all. 0%. I know you can with an iron. You can lift some of the wax up, but for these, I don't lift any of it up. I mean, that's why I went with a color too, to kind of just add a little extra. Yeah, it's part of the final piece. Gonna clean up, cleanity, cleanity, clean. Hey, pal. Oh, it's gonna get up my nose. I just really like how it looks for the little con commissions. So I have my Brusho in these little salt shakers here. But if you were to purchase it, it's either going to come in a pack, or you can buy at some stores, you can buy the individual colors. So I have a bunch of extra colors that I've purchased, like yellow ochre and sandstone. And the only reason I haven't added them is because this contains the colors I have so perfectly. It makes it hard to like want to add new colors. You guys know what I mean? Because it's like, oh, this is so perfect. And I even put rice in it because just to keep it from clumping, since it is kind of a dye-based thing. So I'm gonna do, that's cobalt blue. It's been a minute since I've used Brusho. Cobalt blue. I'm thinking like, yeah, blues and orange. And there's a few different ways you can use Brusho. The way I'm going to use it tonight, and Allie had asked about like watercolor backgrounds. This is one of the big things I use for watercolor backgrounds. So what I'm doing is I'm saturating the paper, and you want standing water because the more water is on your paper surface, the more your Brusho is going to move around. And I'm doing it kind of in sections. That way I can control how much Brusho I add and how much water is on the paper surface. Man, I miss using Brusho. I used to use it when I was doing like a lot of commissions. I used to use it all the time, and I was kind of over it for a while. But like, it's been a while, so I'm, I've redeveloped my taste for it again, I guess. Please don't eat it, by the way. It is not a food. So what's cool about Brusho is that most colors are actually made up of several related colors. So blue might have some green in it. Yellow might have some orange. Orange is going to have yellow and red. The black, in my opinion, is the prettiest because it's black, red, blue, and brown. So it looks like fireworks. And when I do Brusho backgrounds for character things like this, I like doing a couple of contrasting colors.
Have you mixed colors together into a single shaker before?
I have not. That's not a bad idea though. If you can't quite get the color you're looking for. And it always makes a huge mess. So work over a surface that you can very easily clean up. So then what I do, because like you guys see, I'm really saturating the paper with this, and I'm getting some really pretty color blending too, and I don't want to disrupt that. I'm going to go put this under a vent, which is in my bathroom, and then clean up my surface. Might dab like a little bit of orange here just to break that blue up. You don't want to overwork it because it can quickly go from like, oh, that's pretty, to like, oh, it looks like somebody vomited. You could definitely do Starry Night with these pretty easily. Squirrely. So this is one of my big watercolor background tricks because, I mean, it's not complicated. It doesn't require any ability. You can do some really cute, fun stuff using wax resist with this. Like you do your wax resist first, then you cover the whole thing with water, and then you do your Brusho. It does need, actually, isn't that the Ken Oliver? They make like a metallic Brusho. I don't own any of it because
Brusho a name brand?
Brusho is a name brand. It's made by, I can tell y'all. I think it's Color Soft, but
What is it called?
give me a second. Give me a second. Okay, Colorcraft Brusho Colors is this particular one, but they are powdered dye-based watercolors. They can also be referred to as crystalline. It'd be pretty. We could do that. We actually,
Can you call it watercolors if it's not pigment based?
yeah, of course. There's there's loads of watercolors that are dye-based. Most watercolor markers on the market are not pigment-based. The Winsor & Newton ones are the only ones that I'm aware of that are pigment-based. Everything else is dye-based. Watercolor does not have any. In fact, some watercolors are made from dyes.
If I did a painting and hung it in a museum with entirely Brusho, it would say medium watercolor?
Yes.
Okay.
Seriously.
I believe you. It just sounds strange.
Oh, hey Nisa, how are you? Thank you. It's a Marshall. All right, so I'm gonna go put him out to dry. And usually what I do with these is I let it dry for 24 hours. And then I use a drafting brush to brush off the excess Brusho. And then what I'll do is I'll actually put water in Marshall. And the reason I do that is to kind of activate any leftover Brusho. I can soak it up with a paper towel, and that way there are no weird color surprises. I actually have a blog post all about pigments and dyes. Do you think you can grab that for me? If you can't, I can. Yeah. But it's actually a really interesting topic, and there's several channels here on YouTube that talk about it in depth, which is cool. People keep asking about squirrel wooden charms. Seriously. You would have thought the raccoon, would be enough. Or the bobcat. No, they want a squirrel.
Pigments and paints?
That's it. That's it. It took forever to make that post. Like, I spent weeks. So I'm going to show you guys another technique that I do, and this is kind of cheap. This is one of the reasons you kind of want to work on a non-porous surface. So after I've used Brusho, y'all know there's Brusho on the table. Before I clean it up, I'll spray it down, and then I use cheap watercolor paper. So I have here some Canson bulk watercolor paper. And this is great for like watercolor textures, watercolor scans. just set that aside. See, there's a reason to watch crafty channels. I learned about Brusho from crafty channels, and I learned about this from crafty channels. So that's another way I get kind of watercolory backgrounds. Of course, then you have to have places for all this stuff to dry. A paper towel roll rolled over my garbage. I know, right? That's my life. All right, I'm not really getting as much color out of this as I wanted to, so I'm just gonna dab it up real quick and then be done with it. Patrons can expect a new watercolor texture set soon. Oh, the Cats movie? That thing looks ugly. And I liked the musical a lot as a little kid. I would dress up like a cat and roll around the house like a cat. And like every Halloween from the time I was in first grade till I got my own cat, which was fifth grade, I would dress as a cat. So like if anybody should like it, it would be me. And I think it looks awful. Okay, I'm gonna go wash my hands because Brusho has a tendency to get all over your hands. And then I'm gonna move into answering some of Allie's questions that she left for me on Patreon since it's World Watercolor Month. And then people will be like, woo-hoo. You guys, and they're the ones who really push World Watercolor Month. And they also do giveaways of art supplies. So if you guys ever see me tweeting a whole bunch about watercolor, it's because they're doing a giveaway. So I did the Brusho stuff just now, and Brusho, when it comes to like convention watercolors or anything where I need kind of like an easy background, Brusho is going to be my go-to for that. I also really like soft gradients or sprinkling a little bit of salt, kosher salt, onto watercolor. I can show you guys that. It's all really simple stuff that can kind of make it look more special. So my favorite watercolor papers, if we're talking about cotton rag, which is, I really like cotton rag. It's not necessarily my favorite. If I'm painting Cara pages, I like to paint on Canson Mont Vol because it's affordable. I also really like Canson XL for the same reason, and Blick Studio watercolor paper for the same reason as well. Those are all cellulose-based papers. They're not going to handle as nicely as a cotton rag paper, but they're really affordable. When I have the pleasure of painting on cotton rag, I really like painting on Fluid 100 watercolor paper. It's cotton rag, block bound, fairly inexpensive. You can find it at a lot of places. I also really like Blick Premier watercolor paper. I think it's super nice. I think it's very comparable to Arches. It's sold in blocks. It's very affordable considering it's sold in blocks. It has a fair amount of tooth, so if you don't like tooth paper, Art Fluid 100 is more your choice. This is for people who do like some texture. On that note, I also really like Cheap Joe's Kilimanjaro watercolor paper. It's another 100% cotton, and it has a lot of tooth to it. But I really like, I'm trying to grab it for you guys. I really like the Kilimanjaro paper. And I really like their 300 pound because it's actually a very sturdy paper. I also really like Arches. Not necessarily block bound Arches, but pad bound Arches is very affordable. It's like $14 for a pad this size. And I haven't gotten any bad Arches yet, but I have been warned that there are bad batches of Arches. I also really like Stonehenge Aqua. Their hot press is the nicest hot press I've ever used. And I haven't had a chance to play too much with their cold press, but from what I have used, I really like it as well. And you guys can get samples of that if you want to try it before you commit on the Legion website. And it's like, yeah, Kitsune kind of turned me on to it. Legion paper. And I'm pretty sure most Jerry's have Legion. My Jerry's does not have the watercolor paper. They also have a black watercolor paper out that I would like to get my hands on, but I need to be patient and wait. Oh, yikes. No, I have a lot of different types of Stonehenge. But Stonehenge Aqua is their watercolor paper. I have Stonehenge printmaking paper, which is actually kind of a nice mixed media paper, but it's very thirsty, so I wouldn't use alcohol markers with it. But it takes color pencils really nicely. It takes Posca markers really nicely. It takes watercolor decently well. I want the aqua black. I would only use it once in a blue moon, but I want it so bad. I know how that is, Nancy. So I'm going to talk about palettes and colors next. That's a good enough segue. So this is my daily driver. This is what I use for 7-inch Cara. And it is a 48 half pan container I got from Amazon before Meaden was selling theirs. I wish I'd waited because I spent way too much on this, and the Meaden ones are the same quality. And I buy the Meaden ones now when I need empty watercolor containers. So this one has lasted me for a long time. And it has all kinds of colors in it. A lot of them are convenience colors because when I'm painting comic pages, I don't want to mix and mix and mix and mix. It's nice to be able to like just grab existing colors. So at one point I was pretty much just using stuff from half pans, but now I'm buying a lot of tube watercolors and just filling them because they're a bit more economical than buying half pans. So it's a mix of Winsor Newton. There is some Sennelier in there. There's a lot of Daniel Smith in there. There's some Magello. There's a lot of Holbein. I pretty much just hoard watercolors. And if I really like a color and I find that I'm going for it often, it ends up in my daily driver pan. So, I mean, like, how I ended up here is like a long journey. So if you were just starting out, I do have a couple of recommendations over that. So I really like the Davinci mixing color set. It's just 12 colors, but they're some of the highest quality watercolors I've ever. Okay, so I do like Daniel Smith a lot, but Daniel Smith is very sedimenting. The colors do shift sometimes, like from wet to dry. There's a lot of properties that make them great for illustration, but difficult for me to use for my comics. So I like watercolors for my comics that are very predictable. And the Davinci colors are very transparent. They mix really well together. They mix really cleanly. So this is one of my favorite sets to just paint with. I have this here. And it's not the most impressive thing, but I think it's cute. And unfortunately, the color saturation on camera is not great. This was painted with the Davinci colors. I was really happy with what I was able to do with them. They reactivate really quickly. I actually used the heck out of this palette, and it's still holding fast. I do need to kind of refill my phthalo blue eventually, but this is a palette that I really like, and I think it's worth the money. The Core Mini palette is another one of my really big favorites. This one has really, really saturated color in it, and Core makes some of the cleanest blues I've ever seen because, and I can show you guys, I have it handy. They use Aquazol, this right here, as their binder rather than gum arabic. And gum arabic can vary in quality. This is actually a really, really yellow and gross and gunky example of gum arabic, but you guys can kind of see this is like a honey colored gum arabic, whereas this is almost clear. So that's why paints made with Aquazol tend to be a lot cleaner than paints made with gum arabic. You can also use honey, like Sennelier and M. Grams use honey as a binder. No, Daniel Smith uses some of the nicest gum arabic. So theirs is, because he brought in, the dude who owns the company now brought in a sample for Hands-On Creativity, and it was very, very, very light yellow compared to like, it looks like honey. Yeah, or amber. Well, I mean, it is gum arabic is tree sap from the gum acacia tree, I believe, but I might be wrong. I'm sure Kino Kitsune knows. So it is kind of like amber. Amber has just had hundreds of thousands of years to become amber, whereas this is just like fresh, runny, gooey amber. Anyway, I really like this palette as well. It has a few more colors than this palette here, but the colors mix really cleanly. I can mix pretty much anything I need with these palettes. So if you were just starting out, I would just buy a pre-made palette, but I know Allie already has some colors. So what I'm going to do is just kind of recommend some of my basic favorite colors for a basic palette. I would always recommend a warm yellow and a cool yellow. That is going to vary on your preferences and what you have on hand. The cooler yellow like this is great for mixing up greens. Warmer yellows are great for all kinds of things. I would recommend a sap green. I would recommend a cool red and a warm red. Usually your cool reds are going to be like Scarlet Lakes. Your warm reds could be like a quinacridone or an alizarin crimson, a quin magenta, sorry, or an alizarin crimson, or both. I think an alizarin crimson, or I'm sorry, a quinacridone magenta has a place in almost any palette, especially if you're painting people. So, then you're going to want a cool blue and a warm blue. Ultramarine, French ultramarine is pretty standard for your warm blues. I really like phthalo blues for cool blues because I paint a lot of foliage, and I find that a cool blue like a phthalo blue and then a cool yellow make for really nice, bright spring greens. Sap green is really good to have on hand in your palette as well because it's going, and this is also a sap green, it's going to mix like, it's a warmer green, so it mixes really rich olive greens. You can mix it with blues for more intense foliage. Yellow ochres are pretty standard in my palettes. Actually, the core one does not have a yellow ochre, and the way I get around that is I usually mix for like Caucasian skin tones. I usually mix this is Quinn Gold. I will mix a little bit of Quinn Gold with maybe like an alizarin crimson and then maybe like a little burnt sienna. You can also just really water down burnt sienna. It's one of those colors that has a lot of range to it. I use a ton of burnt sienna too. Burnt sienna, Van Dyke Brown, and sepia are basically Cara's hair colors. So you know, oh, and they're also basically Naomi's skin colors. So I go through a lot of it. So yeah, burnt sienna and burnt umber are both really handy. I would not buy a white. You can buy a white gouache, but I would not buy a white watercolor. I would use this space for a Payne's gray like this here, maybe a black, maybe a dioxine purple. So I'll swatch these colors so you can kind of get an idea of what I'm talking about. Oh no, that sounds really cute. Artist Dino. Sorry, just updating. Hey, an ink guy, good evening. Just kind of updating the title name or the stream title. There we go, words are hard. And just kind of what's going on. All right, so I'm going to swatch the Davinci palette for you guys using the Blick Premier watercolor paper. This paper is also really nice because it can be removed from its block and then run through a printer in case you want to print blue lines. And I have reviews of both the Davinci palette and the Ochr palette, as well as field tests in case you guys are looking for more on these. So watercolors can be transparent, like fully transparent. They can be semi-transparent, they can be semi-opaque, and then they can be opaque. I generally lean more towards transparent and semi-transparent colors myself, just because I do a lot of glazing and a lot of layers in my watercolors. So I want things that will layer cleanly. If you do very few layers in your watercolor, then semi-opaque, opaque colors are probably going to be fine. And some companies, not generally the nicer. No, yeah, titanium white watercolor is like frustratingly not opaque for me, which is why I use like, in fact, I have right here, M grams titanium white. This is, no, it says they're watercolor, but I've been using it like gouache and it works just fine. But generally I use gouache instead of watercolor, and I use it really thick. It should be the consistency of cream, and I use it for corrections. You can, but it'll reactivate. You can paint on top of acrylic gouache, which is an acrylic gouache. Electric Abyss really likes acrylic gouache. I wish they were in the chat this evening because then they could talk about it a bit more. I find it really frustrating to use because I don't like acrylics to begin with. So, you know, acrylic gouache is like my nightmare.
Do they like texture it after they lay it down so they can
No,
paint on top
no,
of
not
it?
really, no. The thing about acrylic gouache is once it's dry, because the acrylic is a plasticizer, so it's not going to reactivate. So you can paint on top of it.
But it would be very smooth.
No, it has kind of a matte texture to it. But it's not going to accept as many layers as regular watercolor paper. So in terms of palette recommendations, of these two palettes, it's really going to depend on what kind of stuff you're painting. If you're painting like pastel 80s inspired anime girls, which, you know, guilty, the Ochr palette is a really good palette for that. If you're painting more natural stuff, or maybe like your D&D characters, something like that, the Davinci palette is a really good palette for that. So I'll show you guys what I mean with the burnt sienna as a skin tone. Just really water it down. And you see you have like a very light skin tone, a little more. You get a really nice, rich, darker skin tone if you mix a little bit of the burnt umber in. So using burnt sienna as a skin tone base, very versatile. You can, what I do for Cara's skin is I do yellow ochre with a little bit of like my like generally I would mix it with like scarlet, but this is Davinci red, so it's a little bit strong, but like this, maybe with a little more red in it. So I try to keep my skin tone mixes pretty simple, pretty basic. Hey Jill, good evening. Yeah, I mean, people did used to use gouache and acrylic to do flat painting.
Depending on the back, right? The cells.
Yeah. And then this is the core palette. So the colors in the core palette, the colors in the Davinci palette are very saturated. They're fairly bright. I find they're a little bit more useful for like Cara related stuff because there's more colors that I could use for natural colors. The core palette has a really nice color selection as well. And then there's also the Davinci Ultimate Mixing Palette, which, not Davinci, Daniel Smith, sorry. Which, if you love Daniel Smith, is a great way to have your Daniel Smith watercolors with you at all times. I find they look kind of dirty when I paint with them. Is it cheating? I don't know. I have a glass top and then I have an impermeable craft mat on top to help with the glare. And I used to get so many comments on YouTube about how ugly my desk surface is, and it's just like, it's a working desk surface. Sorry. This is really handy though, because you can put it on any kind of desk surface you wish. But what's also really nice about the core palette here is it's literally pocket, like even women's pocket size. It's tiny. I can put it in my purse. Of course, you know, that's always like the best laid plans because if I bring my watercolors somewhere, you know I'm not using them. But the core set is also really nice for florals. You get this. So this is the Quinn Magenta / Permanent Rose from Davinci. This is the Quinn Magenta from Core. The Quinn Magenta from Core is much more of a blue magenta. And what's also nice about either of these palettes is that they can be refilled with tube watercolors. So I can refill this with my Core, and I could buy Davinci tubes and refill it. I mean, any palette for the most part, you can refill it with tubes. I know Winsor Newton claims that it's like the most specially formulated half pans designed for reworkability, but frankly, any of the many brands that I have tested, I have only encountered like Arteza and cheap brands being a problem with reworkability. Any opinions on? I have not had a chance to try any of Jackson Art's watercolors yet. I'd also like to try Utrecht / Blick watercolors on like a larger scale, and I would like to try Cheap Joe's watercolors, the American Journey watercolors, on a larger scale, because it'd be really cool to find I like finding store brand stuff that I love because it's much more affordable, and you know you're still getting professional quality stuff. Ketchup and mustard. They'd like that though. There's like a certain demographic who's just waiting for me to go off into like guava juice territory. Okay, so that's the core set. They have a few more colors than the Davinci mixing set. Their burnt sienna is a little warmer than the Davinci one, and they don't have a yellow ochre. But that's pretty simple. We can either go with a really, 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 really light wash or progressively dark wash, depending on your character or who you want to paint. We can use burnt sienna. We can use a little bit of Quinn. Oh no, that's Pyrrole Orange. I don't want Pyrrole Orange. Quinn Gold with a little bit of alizarin crimson. This might get kind of orangey. Yeah, it's going to be orange, but you mix in enough alizarin crimson and you end up with a nice, very light skin tone. And then with darker skin tones, with this set, because the burnt sienna is so warm, I would almost recommend you go straight in with the burnt umber, which is like a really nice, a very nice burnt umber with this set. You can do burnt sienna and burnt umber together. It's also very nice and pretty. And then you can even add a little bit of like Payne's Gray in with that. And I'm probably going to goof it, but we'll see. Yeah, actually that's very pretty too. So with both of these sets, what I like about them is they have, I'm sure they are very economic. I would just have to buy about 12, 21 mil or 12 of their tubes for me to be able to really speak to the quality. And I'm just not really in a position anymore for like those kind of large scale watercolor tests. I mean, I still have some unboxing swatches and field tests that I haven't released yet, just due to scheduling. So, you know, and if I ever won them through like a doodle wash giveaway, I would love to review them. But at this point in time, I just can't justify buying another watercolor set to have. So, okay, I talked a little bit about two of my favorite palettes. I talked a little bit about mixing up some really basic skin tones. Is there anything else? Background painting demo. Okay, I can do that really quick, but I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail with that one just because I have a lot of videos on this channel where I paint illustrations from start to finish. So we're going to do one of my favorite cheap techniques, and that is sprinkling salt. You can use just kosher salt, table salt, not like seasoning blend, but you know, salt, and doing a wash. Hey Joseph, can you do me a favor? Can you clean this cup out for me with fresh water? Thank you. You okay?
Yeah, I'm looking for a grinder.
MC Grinder. That grinder? Oh, the grindy bowl. And you can do this with any color you want. I do it a lot with blue, so I'm actually going to do it with magenta this time. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to aim for a gradiated or a graduated wash. Oh, hey, easy tip, and I have a video talking about it, but if you go to Dollar Tree and you buy a white ceramic plate, that makes a great, very, very cheap watercolor mixing surface. So this is on the Fluid 100 watercolor paper. And obviously, if I were doing this as a background, I would have something in the foreground. So maybe I'd have some masking fluid down. Maybe I would have some masking Frisket down. Or maybe I would just be more careful about how I'm applying my wash. It is incredibly easy to do a graduated wash when you are not worried about avoiding something. It is very hard. I really struggle with doing a graduated wash when I have a character or a house or whatever. And I'm just progressively adding more water as I go down to the bottom. This is great technique for, you can do this with sunsets and just have other colors in it. So maybe we'll do like a little bit more of our Quinn magenta and just touch it there at the top. Of course, with certain types of pad or block bound pads, you're going to get it so that it drips down the gum bound surface. That's a little bit frustrating. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, Daiso. Yep. Yeah, any of those kind of stores would definitely have it. And those are so handy. So I'm just going to leave this as is because it's going to get worse the more I try to fix it. Oh no, I don't want the yellow blue, but I do want maybe a little bit of ultramarine. Let's pretend we're doing a sunset. And I have this propped up like this so that gravity will do the work for me and bring my color down. And then while it's still wet, but not like sopping wet, you sprinkle in your salt. And then you're going to let it dry completely like that. And I love this technique for all kinds of things. It's very simple. It's going to have a more noticeable effect than what you're seeing here. It could be a great way to do stars. I've done it for like flower petals before. So I think that about covers it for tonight. No, I wish I could get like a really nice pretty zoom in with like the color accurate, because that would be so no, do not want that. Sorry. And sorry for yelling. It would be like very mesmerizing. Oh yeah. Sauce plates are really good for mixing up like big washes too. Yeah, I would bet. I actually keep you know how like frozen mochi comes in like a container with like 6 big divots? I use those for mixing up big washes when I'm painting comic pages. Oh, no problem. Um the thing about backgrounds is just like it's going to be specific to what you're working on. I mean, I do have some good fake fake backgrounds. Give me a sec. I'll clean this up. I'll do, if I can find a small watercolor pad, I'll do one more fakey fake. And you guys can tell what I paint a lot of because it's going to be like my suggestion. I'm going to move this over here so it can dry. My suggestions are all like geared towards that kind of stuff. And it's no problem. I'm glad she submitted some questions. It's easier than me like trying to make it up as I go along. Okay, so the what? Which form? Sure. Okay, so problem with doing watercolor on the stream is that it is time consuming. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a really simple background. And this is good for like summery stuff. You can do whatever color in the background you want. I'm doing yellow because it's going to make it appear like sunlight. And that needs to dry. So basically what I'm going to do with this is I'm just going to do like layers of leaves. And this one seemed to kind of get away from me. We have a really beautiful gradient up here. And then as the paper dried down here, we have like a sharp transition between the colors. I have to do something with it. I'm definitely going to use it as a watercolor texture. I'm not sure what else I'm going to do with it though. Waiting on paint to dry.
The commission form is the same. The stream commission request form is the same one as requesting an art technique, or is it two different?
I think they're the same form, yeah. Well, I'll do this while it's still wet. We might live to regret it, we might not. That's all just part of being alive. So I'll mix up some of that yellow and then some phthalo blue. And we really just kind of want a little bit of phthalo blue. I grabbed a little too much phthalo blue.
Can you paint gouache on top of wet watercolor, or do you have to wait for
No,
it to
you
dry?
could do gouache on top of wet watercolor. I mean, the thing is, gouache is a type of watercolor. It's just an opaque watercolor. So if we were doing this wet over dry, we would get really strong delineations instead of this kind of soft blended delineation. Either of them is fine. It really is all about what you're looking for and what you're trying to create. So you can do small leaf shapes. I'm doing big leaf shapes. You can do like those Monstrosa leaves where it's like kind of roughly, you can have your leaves all separate, you can have them all connecting. It's just like however you want to do, whatever is going to serve the purpose of the piece you're doing. But this is kind of a good cheap background for like characters that are outdoorsy or woodsy or more natural kind of characters. And you can let it dry and do another layer of the same color on top of it and kind of build up tone like that. I'm going to let it dry a little bit and then I'm going to go in with a darker blue. And the other thing to think about with watercolor is that it's usually going to dry lighter than when you apply it. Yeah, that's a great use for gouache. I would recommend, if you do that, working more with like synthetic brushes or stiffer bristle brushes, just because gouache tends to be kind of heavy and a little bit gloopy. So the nice thing also about block bound paper is it's holding it tight, so we're not getting any buckling or rippling. So another thing about just watercolor in general is usually warm, lighter colors are going to appear closer to us and cooler colors are going to appear further in the background. What I'm trying to do is make it seem like they're leaf shadows. You can also break outside of the areas you've already colored, and that's going to give you kind of like a color transition. So let me see if I can find a good one to do that with. Then it's neat because since the green was still wet, we're getting kind of like a soft line where it's wet into wet, and then a harsher line once we've entered the area that's already had a chance to dry. A couple days, believe it or not. Yeah. Ooh, 6 hours? I would believe it with acrylic. It was in Louisiana during the summer, and it was a really rainy summer, and I had stretched it on corrugated plastic, and I thought it was never going to dry. And you can use a hair dryer to help dry it. Y'all know I don't really care for doing it like that. And there's something just relaxing about kind of painting really basic shapes just overlapping each other too. So it could be just kind of fun in a meditative way. So now I just have like the pure phthalo blue. Trying to find areas that are not like a complete sodden mess. If you let it dry, you're going to get like distinct clean layers. If you do it while it's still wet like I'm doing, you're going to get soft, more blended sort of layers. So it's all really what you're looking for and what kind of end effect you want your piece to have. That's why playing with watercolors is a lot of fun. You can get all kinds of different things from it. That's true, yeah. Especially because gouache can get like all up in the ferrule and then cause the bristles to splay out. And depending on the gouache, some of them you'll never get it out again. And for acrylic, that's definitely true. As an excellent suggestion. Thank you, Nancy. Anyway, that's pretty much as it's gonna let me do because it's pretty wet. And then I sprinkle it with salt. Okay, so I think. Oh, that's a good idea. I keep mine in two separate buckets, but the washi tape is a really good idea too. All right, guys. Let me show you. It's still drying, but I'll kind of show you what the salt did. So what it basically does is it pushes the pigments out of the way, and it'll do that with dyes even more so. So salt with like dye-based watercolors, you can get some really pretty effects. All right, so I want to thank you guys so much for joining me this evening for our Power 2 hour. I hope you guys enjoyed this afternoon, this evening. Hope you had a good time. I hope you guys have a wonderful World Watercolor Month. People will be able to get the charms through the Natto shop or from me at conventions, and you can go to nattosoup.com/shop and you'll find a listing for them sometime soon. Although I don't actually know when. I'll try to have them up, or some of them up, sometime this week. And most of them I think are too small for me to paint. So if you guys want to see me do a painted version of those charms, you're going to have to let me know and help me spread the word. So thank you guys again so much for hanging out with me, and I will hopefully see you guys next week. Bye, guys.